Hello my fellow adventurers, Ryan here from D&D Awakening. Why don't you join us on our travels today with a new Dungeons & Dragons tale? Did you ever have a game that went too well? I did, and now my players are upset with me. I recently bought the Fallout TTPRPG and was excited to play it with my friends. Let's call them Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and Echo. We all set on a time and place to host a Session 0 as the game uses different rules and mechanics than what we're used to with D&D 5e. I also discovered that, aside from Charlie who tried Fallout 4 years ago, most of my friends had never played a Fallout game and only understood the setting through cultural osmosis. This meant, on top of explaining how to play, I was also going to my friend's official introduction into Fallout. With that all in mind, I cobbled together a setting and story. I decided I'd have my players start all as Vault Dwellers to give a matching character and player surprise to discovering Wasteland. And what would Fallout be without its vaults and vault tech's many horrific experiments inside said vaults? Of course, I could start my friends in a control vault, but where's the fun in that? After a lot of brainstorming, I decided this particular vault's experiment would be twofold. First, homosexuality was not only accepted and encouraged inside the vault, but heterosexuality was outright illegal and punishable by prison or even death for repeat offenders. This social shift would be rationalized by the absolute need to control population as to not overexhaust resources, and all children were born through in vitro fertilization. Except that is only the setup for the experiment. In truth, Vault Tech had robots tucked away that were secretly manipulating the genetic codes of the dwellers' eggs and sperm to see how far a human genome could be pushed and still remain viable. This would be the reason the players could have maxed out stats, weird quirks like green hair, or just be ungodly ugly. To get the players out into the wastelands, I planned 2 possible events based on how Session 0 would go. If my players wanted to have a more lighthearted, beer and chips kind of game, a highly popular performer would suddenly escape from the vault in the middle of the night and the players would be selected to go out and rescue/return said performer. If they were up for a more gritty, Mad Max sort of game, the vault would be rated a la Fallout 2 with only them having survived or escaped. Session 0 finally rolls around and we all start testing the rules, building characters, filling roles in the vault, and explaining the story, themes, and concepts. Before I go further, a bit of a necessary introduction for my friends. As I mentioned earlier, my friends and I played 5e off and on before, so we're no strangers to TTRPGs or role-playing. Out of the 3 pillars of 5e, Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie enjoy an equal balance, like myself, with a favoritism for role-playing. Delta and Echo lean hard into favoring role-play above combat and exploration but are okay with them on occasion. My friends also prefer open sandbox games over modules or linear stories as they don't enjoy feeling like they are forced to do things their characters wouldn't do. For example, they don't like random combat encounters when playing 5e as they feel they are being forced to fight something and would rather have made the decision to engage the enemy on themselves. With all that in mind, I explained that they will eventually leave the vault for one reason or another to enter into the wastelands, and about how the Fallout wastelands are filled with starving beasts, insane raiders, and other dangers. So, while I can limit the combat and random fights they will still be inevitable, to which they all say they're okay with it. Next, I asked them if they want a more laid-back kind or game or a more hardcore setting. They didn't hesitate to go for the former. Lastly, I explained life inside the vault, how their lives generally went, the struggles and problems their characters were used to, as well as the atmosphere inside the vault. Out of the 6 of us, Alpha, Bravo, and myself are straight, Charlie is bi, and Delta and Echo are gay. They are also all willing to be open about their sexuality and sexual history once they get to know you. The vault life setting presented definitely surprised them since I'm the most prudish out of our lot, but they were more than happy to get started, especially Delta and Echo. I'll admit, once Session 0 was over, I was curious as to how they would react to a world like the one I described. Would Alpha and Bravo rebel against being punished for who their characters loved or how they normally lived? Would the Charlie, Delta, and Echo stand against the punishments of any straight characters and NPCs, or would they reflect the prejudice they receive in real life? Would they bring the vault's prejudice with them into the wastelands? Once Session 1 officially started, my friends immediately took to vault life. Alpha was a doctor. Bravo was a chef. Charlie became a maintenance technician. Delta is a performer. And Echo was in security. Everyone was given chances to play with skill tests, action points, and the 2d20 system. And as we are all adults, I was open to letting them have as much fun with flings, one-night stands, and whatever else they wanted to get up to inside the steel tomb of the vault. While I never allowed any actual ERP, As role-playing every encounter would have taken all day, Charlie, Delta, and Echo were excited to freely be as open about their characters' love and sex lives as they wanted, and Alpha and Bravo were more than happy playing out their lesbian fantasies. At the end of the session, the atmosphere of the vault had become that of a free love society so long as it wasn't between a man and a woman and it didn't interfere with vault work. And while I did have Echo and Charlie stumble across two breeders exchanging kisses once, they simply looked the other way. I ended the session by having the vault star performer give one last grand concert in front of the entire vault. Needless to say, everyone was super hyped for session 2. After 2 weeks of impromptu one-on-ones about characters, text chats about in-game events, and a surprising amount of out-of-game character building, session 2 starts. Side note, I have never gotten my friends this invested into their characters before, so I was absolutely pumped. As the players wake up in beds not their own and are fighting off hangovers from the after-concert party, they discover the entire vault abuzz as the star performer has gone missing. And it's even rumored that they went outside the vault. But how can that be? Where would they go? The vault's been closed and sealed for hundreds of years. How did they get out? After talking amongst heartbroken fans and confused friends about the situation, the Overseer announces that the performer did indeed leave the vault, and that the Overseer was going to choose a select group of individuals through a lottery to form a rescue party. And you can guess which lucky 5 individuals were selected. And here's where everything went sideways. All my friends said no. I was thrown for a loop. Scrambling to get things on track, I had the Overseer implore to them the importance of morals inside the vault, the necessary service the performer was doing for the vault, how it was their duty to help in a time of crisis, blah blah blah. Again they said no. Each of my friends gave in character reasons as to why they didn't want to leave. Alright then, player agency and all that. If they didn't want to leave, they didn't have to leave. Willingly. On to plan B. The rest of session 2, the vault was completely depressed. Work wasn't getting done. People would argue and rage at each other for the slightest irritation. Some had to be literal dragged out of their rooms to perform their daily duties. They could hear the performer's songs on loop behind closed doors. Posters of the performer around were either turned into funeral memorials or vandalized. The players themselves were looked down on. How could they abandon the performer? How could they be so selfish? Didn't they care about the performer? Etc., etc. Needless to say, my friends weren't all too happy with me at the end of session 2, especially Delta and Echo. They all felt I was unfairly punishing them for the actions they chose and that they shouldn't be bullied into playing a way they didn't want to. I explained that they were right, I was being harsh on them, but it was the consequence of their choice. The Overseer told them how important the performer was. They were also aware of that fact through various pictures, NPC chatter, and the giant concert at the end of session 1 how important the performer was to the vault. And since they had chosen not to leave the safety of the vault, their fellow vault dwellers viewed their characters as having openly abandoned the vault star. I also reminded them that back in session 0 I explained to them that the plan was for them to leave the vault, and that they all agreed they were okay with that. Begrudgingly, they agreed to turn back time and go after the performer. Nope. They made their decision and I said I was going to respect their choice in session 3 if they would give me a chance, and if they still wanted to play. To which, they all reluctantly agreed. Session 3 has been several days since the performer left. The Overseer had sent out a different team. Life was returning to the vault slowly. Delta and other smaller performers within the vault tried to pick up the slack of the star or take their place but struggled to be accepted as a replacement. Half the vault was in a deep depression, with Alpha having to fix a few suicide attempts. Charlie had to pick up the slack of their fellow workers as they didn't see much of a point in continuing without the performer. And the Overseer gave a mandate to Echo to lock up any and all weapons and alcohol to prevent more problems. Again, there was almost no sex for the players. There were a few conflicts to solve and a few skill checks to make, but there was very little RP from my players, making the session boring for everyone. This caused some of my friends to say they didn't want to play since they weren't having fun anymore. I pleaded with them to give it one more session. I promised it was going to be much more interesting in the next session. Session 4, a few more days had passed, and people have moved on. My players are finally getting their groove on again with the other residents, although there are still a few who outright refuse them because of their decisions not to leave. My players finally began to start perking back up and getting into their roles again. The only odd thing to happen in the day was Charlie suddenly discovered a random encrypted file on their Pip-Boy that wasn't there yesterday. To which they failed their 5 difficulty check to hack it open. After another few hours of play and a few more in-game days, everyone is about back to where they were in session 1. Until that is, they hear a loud grinding noise coming from the vault door. Then blam. The vault door explodes off its roller and the vault suddenly becomes a wash of bullets, blood, and death as crazed humans in tribal-like armor pour into the vault, heralded by a hulking suit of black power armor wielding a minigun. I give the players one objective: escape alive. Well, remember how I said my friends, especially Delta and Echo, were upset about being called out for not voluntarily leaving the vault in session 2? Woo boy, were those two absolutely livid. I had betrayed their trust. They got attached to their characters in the vault, and I was just burning it all because I didn't like them having fun. I was killing their characters because I was spiteful. I was ruining a place they could be happy. I was bullying them into playing a certain way against their will. I was a terrible GM. I was a terrible friend. It went on and on and on. Nothing I said reached them. Arguing was drowned out with angry shouts and slurs about being a homophobe. I had never seen my friends that legitimately angry at me before. Even Alpha and Bravo, who were miffed about what had just happened, were completely taken aback by the outburst. Charlie ducked their head and got out of the crossfire. It's been a few weeks, and while I'm on speaking terms with all my friends again, Delta and Echo refused to play another TTRPG with me ever again. Looking back, I do see why Delta and Echo were angry. I had unintentionally made a safe space for them to be open, appreciated, and accepted, where they could as much themselves as they wanted to be and could be. It wasn't that they didn't want to venture into the wasteland. It was that they didn't want to leave the place they felt the most comfortable. But on the other hand, we had all agreed to play a certain game, and my players had decided without me that they wanted to play something else. While it was their decision to stay in the vault, a decision I upheld, there was also no game or story if they stayed. To me, it was as your 5e group suddenly said they wanted to be blacksmiths and refused to go adventuring, but still expect you as the DM to run a compelling, story-driven campaign. I also wasn't okay with endlessly flirting with my friends until they all felt satisfied or got bored. Was I in the wrong for having raiders attack the vault after my friends were opposed to leaving on their own in session 2, or is it okay for me to feel like my friends blew the game's events out of proportion? I mean, we're still friends, it just hurts to see someone you know and care about get so angry at you. Is that a crazy story or what? Let me know what you think below, and until our next tale, take care and I'll see you soon.